Hello, friends. Welcome back to another episode of the Bonney Weekly podcast. And today, as people on Instagram will see, we are semi-casting live on both YouTube and on Instagram. So the people on Instagram get to see me doing this in person. Today, I thought we would have a look at females in crime because there seems to be way less criminals out there who are female. But when women do get into crime, they commit way worse and really quite some horrific crimes. Just having a look at what is in the media lately with the baby killing nurse, it just makes me shudder that these people are out there and that she spent all that time going through nurse training school and everything to then end up just going on a killing spree to basically just try and kill as many babies as you can. Very odd, very strange. So I thought we'd have a look at that and some other things. So I have scanned the web for the worst female criminals in history, and today we came out. There's a top 10, but I was skimmed through to the top 3. So she is from 1892, a lady called Lizzie Borden, the prime suspect of a sensational Fall Rivers murder of 1892. Lizzie Borden was figured in one of the gruesome episodes of American history. According to her story, she found her father dead on his couch, covered in blood, and his left eyeball split in half. Her stepmother was discovered in the same fashion in the bedroom. Lizzie's testimony was inconsistent, and there was an overwhelming amount of evidence against her, including the maid's testimony. Despite this, she was acquitted of the crime, and the murder remained a mystery. Amazingly, you may realise she's white. That's probably why it happened. Bonney Parker from Bonnie and Clyde fame. Bonney Parker and her accomplice Clyde Barrow, who together went on a crime spree during the Great Depression with their Barrow gang. They conducted a series of robberies, kidnappings, murders, and evaded the police on every occasion. The number one, though, Mary Ann Cotton, perhaps one of the most infamous of women serial killers. Mary Ann Cotton was one of the cruelest female characters in history. She married 4 times, and all of her husbands and their children died of the same type of stomach fever. She inherited large sums of insurance each time. All right, so she's not just a psychotic killer. She's in it for the money. Eventually, the media caught up with her modus operandi, and she was proven to have poisoned her husbands, her friends, and even her mother and children with arsenic. Imagine I wonder if she had insurance on her kids as well. Imagine that, your mum suddenly taking out a large insurance policy on you. That's a bit interesting, wasn't it? Collectively, she murdered as many as 21 people, including 11 of her own children. Jeez. Of Mary Ann's 13 children, only 2 survived. She was arrested and hung in Durham County Jail on the 24th of March, 1873. Yes, I mean, all of these ones so far, they've all been from the 1800s. I mean, I'm sure there's been a lot worse since, and maybe they didn't kill as many people in such a sort of a fantastic fashion. So this led me to look at Lucy Letby. Now, Lucy Letby, I didn't really know much about her, but my wife started talking about her. She found her quite interesting, and she kind of put me on to sort of looking at her. And she's the nurse that had the disturbing pattern of baby deaths. Suddenly, and this is what really amazed me, because nurses are normally good people. It takes a long time to become a nurse. You have to study quite hard. You have to obviously pass a lot of exams. You have to want to be in the nursing profession. She hasn't just walked in off the street and suddenly just started killing babies. She's studied, trained, revised, gone through all of that. She's a nurse, and now she's got 22 charges against her of cruelty to babies and attempting to murder 10 others at Chester Hospital between 2015 and 2016. Miss Letby, 32, denies all 22 charges. It came to light because there were far more deaths than one would expect. There was collapses in babies that were otherwise quite stable. But in many of these cases, resuscitation was not successful. A pattern became apparent. It was quite disturbing and quite unusual. It's alleged that Miss Letby injected air into the bloodstream of babies referred to in court as Child A. Shortly after she came on shift in 2015, just over 24 hours after his premature birth. The prosecution alleges she used the same method to attack his sister, Child B, on the following night shift. Dr. Evans told the court that a review of Child A's records showed that the baby boy was in a stable condition before his collapse. God, this is awful. He was, as well as could be expected, all the markers of well-being were very satisfactory. So, yeah, it just seems like, when women start committing crime, it's. I mean, we don't know if there's mental health issues involved, or if it's just a case that she's absolutely just batshit crazy, or maybe she's turned crazy at some point. Because, like I say, you have to put a lot of effort into becoming a nurse, and yeah, it's not easy to do this. She's very disturbing, isn't she? She's just, these people walk amongst us, and it's nuts how natural and normal, not natural, sorry, but how normal it's becoming that these women, like I say, they either don't commit crime at all, or they commit horrendous crimes. The one I wanted to look at is a lady called Joanna Denny. She's put down as the notorious serial killer who used Peterborough as her hunting grounds. During a 10-day period, she killed 3 men. Now, I don't know how many you have to be. How many do you have to kill for a serial killer? I'm guessing it's 3 must be the cutoff, because 2 is just a kind of, you'd be a casual killer, wouldn't you? Just every now and then. But a serial killer, I'm guessing 3 is the killer, the serial killer cutoff point. She killed 3 in 10 days, and in what became known as the Peterborough Ditch murders. In the history of the UK, only 3 women have ever been given whole life sentences without the possibility of parole for crimes they've committed. 2 of these women are still alive today, and 1 actually had to be moved to a different prison due to a threat of her safety from the 3rd. Right, what did she do? The 3rd woman is Joanna Denny, who carried out what has come to be known as the Peterborough Ditch murders in 2013. Over the course of 10 days, she took the lives of 3 men, dumping their bodies in the fenland ditches around Peterborough with disregard. She then went on the run, taunting police and attempting to kill 2 other people as she fled. Denny was born in St Albans, Hertfordshire, that's where a lot of my family's from, and raised in Harpenden by her parents. Kevin, a security guard, and Kathleen, a grocery worker, who had hoped their daughter would become a lawyer. Wow, looking at her picture now, she seems pretty dead beyond the eyes. That's pretty cold, man. Let's have a look. But Denny began running away from home at 15 and did so around 8 times before she finally turned 16 and had the legal right to decide where she lived. It's so sad that a lot of kids, I see it around my area a lot. Unfortunately, when I was younger, I used to sell drugs to some of the kids who would break out of the kids' homes, and they'd need drugs, so I'd sold them to them. I was pretty unscrupulous when I was a kid. And a lot of those kids, they don't end up getting back on track. I think there's something, once you get out of kind of going to school and end up in these kind of institutions at 13 and 14, it's very difficult to come back into kind of real society and the real world. And all too often you see once kids end up in this bad state, she's become a notorious serial killer. Her sister Maria, 29, said it was like she woke up one day and said no about her planned career. There was cannabis and drugs involved. I'm glad they separate the 2 there. She became a bit of a rebel. The first time she ran away from home, my parents called the police. Oh, geez. She was diagnosed with psychopathic and antisocial disorders, as well as a borderline personality disorder. Following her arrest, she was actually diagnosed with paraphilia sadomasochism, where a person gains sexual excitement from pain and humiliation. Jeez, it's like being married. I want to have my fun. Oh, hold on. The court heard that during the journey to Hereford, Joanna told her accomplice, "I want to have my fun." She also apparently bragged that she and her accomplice were like Bonnie and Clyde. See, Bonnie and Clyde again. And that she wanted 9 victims. And goes on to sort of talk about her victims there, sort of different men over that 10-day period. Yeah, it's pretty wild, man. That, like I say, they do these things. I mean, someone who isn't a killer though. I wanted to look up. I remember there being a drug dealer in Liverpool, and she was an old lady, and she ran like a big drugs firm, and I could see how that would happen because everyone expects old women to just be nice. Old people are just nice because they're old. As soon as they hit like OAP age, they just, they're just nice people, but they're not always. Because young scumbags they become old scumbags eventually. And I found this story. It made me laugh. Traffic warden, gangster granny 61, who stored cocaine on a baking tray in her kitchen and sold drugs to addicts to pay off her debts, is spared going to prison by the skin of her teeth. And just looking at what that skin might look like, I'm guessing is yellow. Gosh. Maureen Thompson, 61, left her traffic warden job after suffering a serious injury. She spiraled out of control from using pain relief and started taking cocaine. That's one hell of a spiral out of control, to go from overdoing the paracetamol to end up smashing cocaine back. But when she got into debt to a drug dealer, she agreed to start selling to other addicts. A police drugs bust on her Wigan home found 47 wraps of a Class A drug. She admitted possessing cocaine with intent to supply at Bolton Crown Court. Jeez. But so that, she didn't go out and massacre anyone. But it's amazing that there are other people that debt. I don't think that she was completely persuaded into doing that. I think this is just probably her story. I think that she probably was a drug dealer and just got caught. It's too scary to get that big if you don't want to. It's too much for someone. You can't force people to do things they don't want to do. People break if they're that delicate. But she obviously wanted to do it. And there's one bit in here. They found text messages on her phone, and it said that she there's a Facebook message. A Facebook message on her account shows her jokingly referring to herself as the gangster granny. Now, you don't do that if you're afraid or if you're being bullied by a drug dealer. You do that because you're making money, don't you? This lady is one from America, and it caught my eye a little while ago. And I was going to do a video about females in prison and how. So you see these women in America, and they chase after guys on death row. And these are guys that are never getting out of prison, and on the most part, and in sometimes they've committed horrific crimes towards women, and yet they get sort of groupies and wives, and they have sometimes multiple marriages. I know Charles Bronson's been married to a few different people, normally his lawyer, normally people who actually get to meet him, but these guys are never getting out, and there's a fascination, and I saw this story last year, and I was going to do videos about this. But this woman is possibly the most different and obscure woman I've read about. I'll read the story. Female prison officer who had sex with a prisoner in front of 11 inmates is jailed. And she's not bad looking either, looking at the picture. So yeah, they're not all gruesome and they're not all minging. Some of them are nice as well, but not many. It's a very small number. A female prison officer has been jailed after she was caught having a sexual relationship with an inmate. Tina Gonzalez, 26, worked as a Fresco County Corrections Officer in 2016, but was arrested in May 2020. just as the lockdown was kicking off. The sheriff's office was given a tip that an inmate had been having sex with a correctional officer and that she had smuggled in a phone. Gonzalez is alleged to have had cut a hole in her uniform to make it easier to have sex with a prisoner who has not been named. Gonzalez is also accused of having sex in full view of 11 other inmates. So this is another woman that has worked towards fucking up her career spectacularly. She's not killing babies, but she is ruining her life and her future and the rest of her career. Assistant Sheriff Steve McComas, who was Gonzalez's boss until she was fired, told the Fresco Bee that in his 26-year-long career he'd seen and heard some pretty disgusting things, but that his former employee's conduct was the worst. He said that is something only a depraved mind can come up with. A depraved mind. That's what we're finding about these women. That's what I find. Male criminals are normally quite, we commit some bad crimes, but depraved. You heard what she was described as. He said that is only something a depraved mind can come up with. He went on to say that Gonzalez did not appear to be sorry for her actions. McComas added, she took an oath which she betrayed, and in doing so she endangered her co-workers' lives, which I guess she did. But she's shown no remorse, and she continually calls and has sexually explicit conversations with the inmate in question and boasts about the crimes they carried out. So, not only women do they commit ridiculously gruesome crimes that ruin so many people's lives and their own lives around them, but they're also willing to ruin their own lives for ridiculous relationships with criminals who are never going to get out of prison. And in this case, it was obviously some sort of fetish or kink as well. So that is today, and today's episode. I wanted to talk about women in crime. Now, like I said, there are far less females in crime, and I just wanted to have a look how many prisons there are. Now, there are 141 male prisons across the country, England, Wales, Scotland, and everywhere, and there are only 16 female prisons. So it's far greater. That it's only 10% of the number of crimes. Now, it's interesting that men commit way more crimes than women, and when women do commit crimes, it tends to be a few things. In just a very general term, it's generally either crimes against men who have abused them, it's shoplifting for drug addictions, it's drug-related crimes, or it's violence, sort of against each other. Whereas men are committing sort of robberies. You never really see bank robberies being committed by women. And I haven't Googled this. I probably should if I'm going to do a podcast about it. But it always seems to be just, it's always men committing the vast majority of crime and women committing the more gruesome but far rarer crimes. So thank you very much, everybody, for listening today and for watching on Instagram Live. And this video will be up so you can watch it again and see kind of the bloopers and how much of a donkey I really am. So thank you very much for listening. Like, subscribe, do all of the things that YouTube like, and we'll be back shortly for another episode of the William Bonney Weekly podcast. Thank you very much. Cheers. Bye-bye.